"She's not coming," my mother told the florist, loud enough for the entire shop to hear. "We'll just say she's sick again." I stood there, holding a sample bouquet, completely invisible. My daughter's wedding, my only child, and they were writing me out like a family embarrassment. It wasn't just the invite. I'd been erased from the entire program. Not mother of the bride, not even a name, just nothing. But what they didn't know? I'd been documenting every lie, every blocked message, every stolen dollar. And when I showed up, I wasn't bringing drama. I was bringing receipts. My name is Laura Keller, and I'm 45 years old. I live alone in the same suburban house where I raised my daughter Emily after losing my husband Tom to cancer 12 years ago. My mother, Carol Whitaker, has orchestrated every aspect of our lives since then, from Emily's college choices to the way I style my hair. The morning sun streams across my kitchen counter where an unopened wedding invitation sits, my coffee going cold beside it. My phone lies face down. I can't bear to see another message from her. Mother has always insisted on perfection. Straight spines at dinner, measured voices at parties, choreographed holiday photos. But what she doesn't know is that I've documented everything, every receipt, every text, every suggestion that wasn't really a suggestion. The wedding should have been my moment to be the proud mother. But let me start from the beginning. It was just past noon when my phone lit up with my mother's number. I remember because the kitchen clock had just chimed and I was putting away the lunch dishes, the same plates Emily and I used to share PB&J sandwiches on when she was little. "Laura," Mother's voice came through crisp and businesslike. "I need to discuss the wedding arrangements." My stomach tightened. It always did when she used that tone. "Of course, Mother. I was actually hoping to talk about the—" "Don't come to the wedding," she cut in, her words precise as scissors. "We will tell people you are sick." The room tilted. You know that feeling when your ears start ringing and your face goes hot all at once? That's where I was, standing there with a dish towel frozen in my hand, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. I don't understand," I managed to say. "Emily's my daughter. I need to be there." "Emily agrees it's for the best." Mother's voice had that familiar edge, the one that always made me feel about 10 years old. "You'll only cause unnecessary drama." "Let me speak to Emily." My voice cracked. "Please, just put her on the phone. She's busy with preparations." "Goodbye, Laura." The line went dead. My hands shook as I redialed Emily's number. It rang 4 times before hitting voicemail. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice steady like I used to when she'd scrape her knee and need comfort. "I just spoke with Grandma about the wedding. There seems to be some confusion. Could you call me back when you get a chance? I love you." I followed up with a text. "Emily, whatever you've heard, I promise there's an explanation. Can we talk?" The kitchen suddenly felt too quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to mock the silence of my phone. I pulled out the small leather-bound notebook I'd started keeping after Tom died, the one where I documented everything, because sometimes memory plays tricks when you're grieving, or when someone's trying to make you doubt yourself. 12:07 p.m. Call from Mother. 2 means 13 cc's. "Don't come to the wedding. We will tell people you are sick." Requested to speak with Emily. Denied call disconnected by Mother. 12:11 p.m. Left voicemail for Emily. 12:12 p.m. Sent text to Emily. The mailman's truck rumbled past outside. I walked down the driveway, my legs feeling oddly wooden. There it was in the mailbox, the cream-colored envelope with the gold edging that Mother had shown me samples of months ago. I carried it inside like it might shatter and placed it on the kitchen table, next to my cold coffee, and that notebook full of careful notes. Emily usually finished work at 5. I'd wait until then, give her time to decompress. She'd call back. Of course she would. We'd sort this out over dinner, maybe laugh about it later. "Remember that time Grandma tried to ban me from your wedding?" We'd say someday, shaking our heads. The hours crawled by. I watched the sun slide across the kitchen floor, listened to the neighbors' kids come home from School smelled someone's dryer vent puffing fabric softener into the afternoon air. My phone stayed silent. At 5:15, I checked Emily's location on our shared family app, still at the office. 5:45, driving home according to the dot moving on my screen. 6:30, at her apartment. 7:15, no call. 8:1, no text. 9:45, screen dark, silent, blank. I sat there in my kitchen, that unopened invitation mocking me from across the table, while the night pressed against the windows. The house felt bigger somehow, emptier than it had since those first awful months after Tom died. Back then, at least I'd had Emily to hold on to. Now my phone screen stayed dark, and each minute that ticked by carved something deeper than hurt into my chest. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, watching steam curl off my coffee, that cream-colored envelope still waiting where I'd left it. You ever have one of those moments where you know you're about to see something you can't unsee? That's exactly how it felt. I slid my finger under the flap, careful not to tear the paper. The invitation itself was beautiful. Letterpress printing, gold foil details, the works. Mother's taste had always been impeccable. I'll give her that. But as I pulled out the program, my coffee turned to acid in my stomach. There it was, printed in elegant script, together with their families. Emily Catherine Keller, daughter of Mrs. Carol Whitaker. I had to read it 3 times before the words stopped swimming. My hands went numb, like they do when you hit your funny bone, except this wasn't funny at all. My own mother had written me out of my daughter's wedding program as if I'd never existed. Remember those old Polaroid cameras, how they'd capture a moment exactly as it was? That's what I did next. Methodical, like I was collecting evidence at a crime scene. I took out my phone and photographed every page: invitation, program, response card, directions insert. Each image went into a folder labeled with today's date. You learn to document things when someone spent years telling you your memory can't be trusted. The clock hit 9 a.m., late enough for a call. Emily's phone rang once, twice, then clicked to voicemail faster than a natural ring cycle. The kind of redirect that happens when someone's blocked your number or declined your call. I switched to text, keeping it light. Quick question about the cake flavors. Want to make sure I don't duplicate anything for the shower. Let me know when you have a minute. The message showed as delivered. Then nothing. The 3 dots never appeared. My laptop was still open from checking work emails. I pulled up the venue's website listed on that fancy direction card. There it was, their sample wedding program template. The wording matched our invitation exactly, right down to the flourishes around the names. But something caught my eye. They required final approval from both the bride and mother of the bride before printing. That got me thinking. I opened Facebook, scrolled through Emily's recent posts. Pictures of dress shopping with mother, venue tours, flower arrangements. But no photos of the invitations, not even a hint about them being mailed. Emily had shared every other detail of her planning. Why not this? Instagram next. Same thing. Plenty of wedding prep photos, but nothing about invitations. The last post showed her and mother at a cake tasting 3 days ago. Emily's smile looked genuine, but there was something tight around her eyes. Or maybe that was just my imagination working overtime. Looking at those photos hurt. Worse than the invitation, in a way. Every single one showed moments I should have shared with my daughter. Instead, there was mother, perfectly coiffed and beaming, playing the role she'd stolen from me. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. The morning sun caught the gold edges of that invitation, making them flash like warning signals. Emily was meticulous about her social media presence. She'd learned that from mother, actually. If she'd approved these invitations, she would have posted about them. The girl who photographed her wedding shoe options wouldn't skip documenting the actual invitations. The pieces clicked together. Emily hadn't seen these at all. Mother had handled everything with the printer, probably signed off on the proofs herself. It fit her pattern, control the narrative, present the finished product as a fait accompli, then smooth over any objections with her particular blend of guilt and manipulation. I pulled my notebook closer and added today's findings in my precise handwriting. The next step was clear. I needed to confirm whether Emily had actually seen these invitations before I confronted anyone. One wrong move now could make me look exactly like the drama queen mother had accused me of being. I'd been staring at my phone for 20 minutes, thumb hovering over Karen's number. My late husband's sister had always been our family's voice of reason, the kind of woman who could slice through drama with a look and spot manipulation from 3 counties away. But calling her meant admitting how bad things had gotten. You ever notice how asking for help sometimes feels like confessing failure? Finally, I pressed dial. Karen picked up on the second ring. "Laura, everything okay?" "Not exactly." My voice cracked a little. "Got a minute?" "It's about Emily's wedding. Give me 5 to get somewhere private." I heard rustling, then a door closing. "Okay, shoot." I laid it all out. The phone call, the invitation, Emily's silence. Karen didn't interrupt once, just made these little sounds that somehow gave me permission to keep going. When I finished, the line went quiet for so long, I thought we'd lost connection. "Send me everything," she said finally. "Call transcript, screenshots, photos of that invitation. And Laura, this isn't the first time your mother's pulled this kind of stunt." My stomach did that hollow thing again. "What do you mean?" "Remember Emily's high school graduation party? How your mother told everyone you'd agreed to skip it because you were too emotional that day. I found out later she'd intercepted your RSVP and told Emily you couldn't handle big gatherings anymore." The memory hit like a physical blow. That whole week had been a blur of unanswered calls and Emily's hurt silence, just like now. "There was Christmas 2 years ago, too," Karen continued. "Those voicemails you supposedly never left? Emily told me later your mother said you'd been too busy to call, and that family reunion where everyone thought you'd refused to come? Your mother rewrote that whole narrative." I grabbed my notebook, started jotting down dates. The pattern was so clear now, I couldn't believe I'd missed it. "Here's what we do," Karen said, switching to what I called her project manager voice. "First, we verify all communication paths. Then we collect proof from neutral parties, vendors, venue staff, maybe that assistant who works with the officiant, people who've dealt with your mother directly." "Divide and conquer?" I suggested, already feeling steadier with a plan forming. "Exactly. Al chasono. Contact 2 vendors I know from church events. You start putting together a timeline, dates, incidents, patterns, document everything." We hung up, and I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. The timeline came together faster than I expected, each entry triggering another memory. Mother taking over parent-teacher conferences. Mother scheduling doctor appointments without telling me. Mother helping with college applications by controlling which. Schools got Emily's final submissions. My phone buzzed with a text from Karen. "Vendors confirm they only know your mother. She's listed as sole contact and wedding planner. Says she has POA for all decisions." Power of attorney? For wedding decisions? The room tilted slightly as pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just about one wedding invitation. This was the culmination of years of careful groundwork. I looked at my timeline. Really looked at it. What I'd written wasn't a random series of incidents. It was a deliberate campaign of isolation. Each event had pushed me further from Emily's life while strengthening Mother's control. And now, with the wedding, she was making her final move. My hands were shaking as I added Karen's vendor update to my notes. Tonight couldn't be about confusion anymore. We needed hard proof, and we needed it fast. I texted back, "Timeline's done. What's next?" Karen's response came quick. "Don't move yet. More vendors to check. Stay quiet until we have everything." She was right, of course. Karen was always right about timing, but sitting still when your child's being turned against you? That's like trying not to scratch a poison ivy rash. Every instinct screams for action. I forced myself to close the notebook. We had a plan now, and we had something Mother never expected, an ally she couldn't manipulate. For the first time since that awful phone call, I felt the fog of confusion lifting. In its place came something sharper, clearer, determination backed by evidence. I sat at my kitchen table the next morning, staring at the calendar like it might suddenly sprout better answers. 7 days. That's all I had left until Saturday's ceremony. The red circle around that date seemed to pulse, mocking my helplessness. You know that feeling, when time starts moving too fast and too slow all at once? That's where I was living now. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. Again. Seems like I couldn't finish a hot drink these days without getting lost in thought. My mind kept circling back to Emily's graduation, how she'd scanned the crowd during her speech, probably wondering why her own mother hadn't shown up. The memory made my chest ache. I opened my laptop and started pulling together every email I'd saved over the past year. Wedding venue inquiries Emily and I had discussed last summer, cake tasting appointments we'd planned to attend together, dress shopping dates that somehow got rescheduled without my knowledge, each one a small thread in Mother's web. Keep it professional, I muttered to myself as I drafted an email to Mother. The words had to be perfect, calm, reasonable, impossible to twist. After 4 rewrites, I had it. Mother, I notice I'm not included on vendor communications for Emily's wedding. Please add me to all relevant email chains and group messages. As mother of the bride, I want to ensure everything runs smoothly for Emily's special day. Thank you. Short, simple, hard to misinterpret. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Her response came less than 2 minutes later. My stomach clenched. She'd been waiting for this. The email was massive, a forward chain stretching back months, but not the full thread. No, this was Mother's greatest hits collection. Every slightly frustrated comment I'd ever made, every scheduling conflict, every moment of emotion taken completely out of context. And there, at the top, her neat little summary. Laura, dear, I've attached the relevant correspondence explaining why Emily requested I handle the arrangements. Your emotional volatility has been concerning to everyone involved. Remember the incident with the florist? I'm happy to keep you informed of final decisions, but Emily needs this to be a stress-free time. The incident with the florist? I barely remembered raising my voice when they tried to swap Emily's chosen flowers for something more sophisticated. But there it was in the email chain, transformed into a full meltdown that had supposedly left Emily in tears. My hands shook as I took screenshots of the most damning parts. The careful way Mother had inserted herself into every decision. The subtle suggestions that I was becoming unstable. The gradually shifting timeline that painted her as the stable, reliable alternative. I composed a new message to Emily, keeping it brief. Sweetheart, I know things are confusing right now. These screenshots show what's really been happening with the wedding planning. I love you. And I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I attached 3 of the clearest examples and hit send. The message showed as delivered almost immediately, but that read receipt I was hoping for never came. My phone buzzed, Karen checking in. How'd it go? She asked. About as well as a root canal without anesthesia. I filled her in on Mother's response. Karen's sigh crackled through the speaker. We need to pause on direct confrontation. Every move we make, she spins it to support her narrative. We need something she can't redirect. But the clock's ticking, I protested. 7 days, Karen. 7 days until I lose my daughter. Then we get creative, she said firmly. But we do it smart. After we hung up, I grabbed a Post-it note and wrote in block letters, "Prove truth before vows." I stuck it right on that red-circled Saturday, a reminder of what was at stake, what I had to do. That night, I lay in bed watching shadows dance across my ceiling. The same question kept clawing at my mind. How do you prove the truth to someone when every piece of evidence can be twisted into a lie? What kind of proof is impossible to spin? The next morning, I spread everything across my kitchen table. You know how sometimes making things physical helps you see them clearer. I had my laptop open, phone records pulled up, and a fresh 3-ring binder ready to go. The coffee maker gurgled in the background, a sound that usually meant comfort, but today just marked time slipping away. Remember those old-school telephone logs we used to keep by landlines? I found myself making one just like that, documenting every call and text with Emily over the past 3 months. The pattern jumped out like a neon sign, gaps where messages disappeared, calls that went straight to voicemail. During times Emily was usually available, each entry went into the binder, dated and highlighted. I'd transcribed half my saved voicemails when Karen called. "I'm talking to the officiant's assistant right now," she said, her voice tight with that controlled anger she gets. "Want to guess what your mother's been up to?" My stomach did that familiar drop. "Hit me. They have you listed as limited access only due to," and I'm quoting here, "documented instability concerns." Karen's breath came out in a hiss. "Your own mother put a soft block on you with the wedding officiant. You know that feeling when you're so angry your eyes start burning? That hit me right then. I had to do that slow count breathing my old therapist taught me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. "Laura, you still there?" "Yeah." My voice came out steady. Thank God for small mercies. "I'm going to email the officiant's office. Keep it professional, just correct one fact that I'm the actual mother of the bride." "Good thinking. Document everything." I crafted that email like I was defusing a bomb. Every word had to be perfect. "Dear Reverend Matthew's office, I hope this email finds you well. I'm writing to verify the current contact list for Emily Keller's wedding ceremony on Saturday. I noticed there may be an error in the records. I am, Laura Keller, Emily's mother and mother of the bride. Please confirm receipt of this information for your files. Best regards, Laura Keller." Professional. Factual. No emotion they could use against me. The response came back within the hour. "Dear Ms. Keller, thank you for your inquiry. As per our policy, all changes to ceremony documentation must be submitted through the designated wedding coordinator. In this case, that would be Carol Whitaker. Regards, Office of Reverend Matthews." Another dead end. Mother had locked down every official channel like a fortress. "Time for lunch," Karen texted. "Meet me at Giovanni's. We need to pivot." The sun felt too bright when I stepped outside, like it was mocking my mood. I clutched my evidence binder, sad how your whole life can fit in one 3-inch spine, and headed for my car. The vinyl seats were hot enough to sting through my slacks, but I barely noticed. Karen was already at our usual corner booth when I arrived, 2 iced teas waiting. She took one look at my face and slid her untouched glass over. "Drink first, then we'll talk strategy." I took a long sip, letting the cold shock my system back to focus. "We need a new approach. She's got every official channel locked down tight." "Exactly." Karen leaned forward. "So we stop playing by official channels. Time to change." Tactics. Chapter 5. Scene 2. Giovanni's was quiet that afternoon, just a few regulars nursing espressos at the bar. Karen had picked our usual corner booth, the one with the worn red vinyl seats and water ring stains on the table. You know those old Italian places that never change? This was one of those, complete with the faded photos of Rome on the walls and the smell of garlic bread that never quite fades. I slid the binder onto the table, between our iced teas. Every official route is blocked. She's got her fingerprints on everything. The venue, the officiant, even the florist. My voice cracked a little on that last part. Emily and I used to press flowers together when she was little, making bookmarks with wax paper and an old iron. Karen leaned in close, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. When narratives are rigged, numbers tell the truth. She tapped my binder with one finger. "We need to follow the money." "What do you mean?" "Vendor retainers, venue deposits, and any accounts with Emily's name on them." Her eyes held mine steady. "Money leaves trails, Laura. Your mother's been coordinating everything, right? That means she's handling the payments." I felt my shoulders tense. "I don't know, Karen. Digging into financial records feels..." I stirred my tea, watching the lemon wheel spin. "It feels like crossing a line." More of a line than her erasing you from your daughter's wedding? Karen's tone was gentle but firm. How many more doors need to slam in your face before you fight back? The weight of the past few days crashed over me suddenly. You ever have that moment where keeping it together just feels harder than letting go? I pressed my palms against my eyes, fighting back tears. Maybe? My voice was barely a whisper. Maybe it would hurt less to just stay quiet. Let her win. Emily already believes whatever she's been told. Karen's hand covered mine, warm and steady. That's the exhaustion talking. You're Emily's mother. You raised her alone after Tom died. Remember those college accounts you managed for her? The ones she authorized you to oversee? I nodded, remembering the careful budgeting, the monthly statements I'd review with Emily to teach her about money management. Those statements would show any unusual patterns, Karen continued, and you had legal access. Still do, probably, unless Emily specifically revoked it. The marinara sauce simmering in the kitchen reminded me of Sunday dinners with Emily, teaching her to cook from her grandmother's recipes. My mother-in-law's, not my mother's. The memory steadied me. I kept all the statements, I said slowly. In the fireproof box in my home office. 5 years. Worth, at least. Then that's where we start. Karen squeezed my hand. Finish your tea. We've got work to do. Back home, I unlocked the metal file box, the one Tom gave me for our first anniversary, saying every family needed a safe place for important papers. The statements were there, organized by year in manila folders, each one marked with Emily's neat handwriting from when she'd helped me file them. My hands trembled less as I spread them across my desk, scanning dates and payees. The familiar rhythm of bookkeeping settled over me like an old sweater. Credit card statements, bank transfers, investment accounts, all the careful documentation of building Emily's future. Then I saw it. A string of charges from boutiques and restaurants in Mother's City, places I'd never heard of. Luxury retailers, high-end spas, places that had nothing to do with Emily's education or needs. Karen? I said into my phone. I think I found something. She was quiet while I read off the charges. Finally, she spoke. Those aren't college expenses. No, I agreed, my voice steadier than it had been in days. They're not. Something shifted in my chest. Not quite hope, but maybe its cousin. Every number told a story, and these numbers? They were telling quite a tale. Karen and I spread everything across my dining room table, the same one where Emily used to do her homework, now covered in bank statements instead of textbooks. The setting sun threw long shadows through the blinds, making zebra stripes across our growing timeline of transactions. Here's another one, I said, highlighting a line. 5,000 transferred out of Emily's inheritance sub-account on March 15th. I pushed my reading glasses higher on my nose, tagged as wedding planning expenses. Karen made a note on her legal pad. That matches the date of your mother's Instagram post, the one with her new Gucci handbag. She turned her laptop screen toward me. There was Mother, beaming at some rooftop restaurant, sporting a bag that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. You know that feeling when puzzle pieces suddenly click together? Like when you finally see the pattern in one of those magic eye pictures? That's how it felt as we traced the money trail. Look at this pattern, Karen said, tapping her pen against the paper. Every major transfer out of Emily's account lines up with your mother's shopping sprees. She started a fresh page, drawing 3 clean columns. Date, amount, destination. Let's make this crystal clear. I nodded, feeling steadier than I had in days. Numbers don't lie. That's what I always told Emily when I was teaching her to balance her first checkbook. Mother could spin stories all day long, but bank statements? They're just facts in black and white. Here's the venue deposit, I said, sliding another statement across the table. 12,000, paid from Emily's account on April 3rd. I pulled up the venue's website on my phone. But their premium package only costs 9,000. Karen's eyebrows shot up. Where's the other 3,000? I pulled up Mother's social media again. Look at the date. Stamp on this spa weekend post. The image showed her lounging by some resort pool, designer sunglasses perched on her nose. April 4th. We worked through dinner, though neither of us felt much like eating. Every transfer we tracked led to another luxury purchase or high-end experience, all perfectly documented on Mother's social media. She'd never been one for discretion when it came to showing off. We need to present this without emotion, Karen said, reviewing our summary sheet. Just dates, amounts, and verifiable destinations. No speculation, no accusations. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. For officiant and fiancé. Every scanned statement, every social media screenshot, every cross-referenced receipt went into it. The evidence was undeniable. Make hard copies too, Karen advised. 2 sets. The printer hummed in the background as I checked my phone's calendar. 3 days until Saturday. My stomach tightened, but this time it wasn't from helplessness. Funny how having solid proof under your fingers can steady your nerves. The officiant's office opens at 9, I said, setting my phone alarm for 7:30. But their answering service picks up at 8. If I call then, I'll get a person, not a voicemail. Karen gathered her things, squeezing my shoulder as she stood. You've got this, Laura. The truth's all here in black and white. After she left, I stood at the dining room window, watching the last light fade from the sky. The table behind me was covered in paper trails and proof, each sheet a small weapon in my arsenal. But they weren't really weapons, were they? Just truth, laid out in orderly rows. I carefully sorted everything into 2 identical packets, then added one final touch. A Post-it note with the cloud folder access code. Simple, professional, undeniable. My phone buzzed with a text from Karen. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we move. I looked at the packets on my table, thinking about Emily. She'd inherited her father's careful nature with money, learned good habits that Mother had somehow managed to override. All those transferred funds had been meant for Emily's future, not Mother's designer accessories. Setting my alarm, I felt something I hadn't in days, ready. 3 days until the wedding, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I had more than just my word against Mother's. I had proof. The bank's archive department always opened at 10, and I'd been refreshing my email since 9:55. When the message finally came through at 10:12, my coffee had gone cold beside me. You ever have one of those moments where the truth hits you so hard it actually feels peaceful? The bank's confirmation landed, like that. Clean, clinical, complete. Transfer history verified, the email read. Source account ending 8742, E. Keller Inheritance Trust. Destination account ending 4019. C. Whitaker Personal Household Enhancement. No wedding vendor account. No special event fund. Just Mother's personal spending pipeline, dressed up with a vague label that probably helped her sleep at night. I forwarded the email to Karen, adding only, confirmed. She called within minutes. This changes everything, Laura. We need to move fast, but smart. Her voice had that steady tone she gets when she's plotting something bulletproof. The rehearsal's tomorrow. Today's our window. The officiant first? I asked, already knowing her answer. And then the fiancé. Clean, professional, no drama, just facts. Remember how I mentioned earlier that I'd spent decades learning to swallow my mother's sharp commands? Well, sometimes swallowing poison just means you build up immunity. My hands didn't shake at all as I packed up the evidence packets. The officiant's office was one of those old downtown buildings with brass elevator buttons and wood-paneled walls. Karen and I sat in the waiting area, our knees almost touching the edge of a massive oak desk. I appreciate you meeting us on such short notice, I said, when Reverend Martinez walked in. I kept my voice level, like I was discussing the weather. We have some documentation that affects the ceremony's compliance procedures. You should have seen how quickly his expression shifted from polite interest to pure focus when he started flipping through those pages. 20 years of performing weddings, and I bet he'd never seen financial receipts quite like these. "This account here," he said, tapping the paper. "These funds were designated for my daughter's inheritance trust, yes." I didn't let my voice waver. "We're only asking that proper procedural oversight be maintained." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand completely." The meeting with Emily's fiancé was even shorter. We'd arranged to meet him in the lobby of his office building, public enough to feel safe, private enough for discretion. "Thanks for sparing a few minutes, James," I said, handing him the second packet. "There's some financial documentation here that needs your attention before tomorrow." I remember exactly how the color drained from his face when he saw his forged signature on that vendor invoice. His Adam's apple bobbed once, hard. "These charges," he said, voice rough. "I never—" "The cloud folder code is on the post-it," I cut in gently. "Everything's verified there too." Karen and I left him standing there, staring at the papers like they might bite. We didn't need to say more. Sometimes the quietest bombs make the biggest waves. The rest of the day passed in slow motion. I watered my plants. I answered some work emails. I heated up leftover lasagna for dinner. Normal things, while the clock on my wall kept ticking toward tomorrow's rehearsal. You know what's strange? I didn't feel nervous anymore. There's something powerful about letting go of control once you've done everything you can. The truth was out there now, in the hands of people who couldn't ignore it. Karen called one last time before bed. "Try to sleep," she said. "Whatever happens tomorrow." I know. I looked at the empty evidence folders on my desk. It's not in our hands anymore. That night, lying in bed, all I could hear was my bedside clock marking time. Tick, tick, tick. Each second moving us closer to whatever tomorrow would bring. I'd done my part. I'd shown the truth without throwing a single punch. Now it was up to others to decide what to do with it. Friday morning crept in with that particular September chill. You know, the kind that whispers change is coming. I stood at my kitchen window, watching pale sunlight crawl across my neighbor's fence, while my coffee went cold in my hands. The sky looked like washed-out denim, the kind Emily used to wear when she was little and insisted on puddle jumping after rain. Those memories have a way of sneaking up on you at the strangest times, don't they? My phone buzzed at 7:42 a.m. The caller ID showed the officiant's office. "Mrs. Keller?" The assistant's voice had that careful, measured tone people use when they're following a script. "Reverend Martinez asks that you remain reachable throughout the day. We may need to contact you regarding procedural matters." My stomach did a little flip, but I kept my voice steady. "Of course, I'll have my phone with me." "Thank you." A pause. "That's all for now." I set the phone down and took a deep breath. The formality in her voice told me everything I needed to know. They were taking this seriously. Really seriously. Karen arrived at 9, carrying her biggest leather tote. "All the documentation's in here," she said, patting the bag. "Ready?" I nodded. The smart play was staying quiet, letting others handle the fallout. No desperate messages to Emily, no preemptive strikes at Mother. Just stillness. We found a quiet corner table at the Daily Grind, this little cafe 2 blocks from the venue. Close enough to respond quickly, far enough to avoid accidental run-ins. We turned our phones face down on the table and ordered coffee we barely touched. "Remember when Emily had her wisdom teeth out?" Karen asked, suddenly. "How you sat in that waiting room for 6 hours straight?" I smiled. "Reading those terrible magazines about celebrity diets." "This is just another waiting room," she said softly. The phones lay there like silent judges while we pretended to read newspapers and picked at our muffins. My hands shook a little every time a car door slammed outside. At 10:17, my phone lit up, a text from James, Emily's fiancé. "We need to talk before guests arrive." Have you ever felt time slow down around a single moment? Like you're watching yourself from outside your body? That's how it felt, typing back that one word. "Here." I caught Karen's eye. She squeezed my hand once, hard. 10 minutes later, James walked in. The bell above the door chimed too cheerfully for the look on his face. His eyes were rimmed red, like he hadn't slept, and his usually neat hair stuck up in worried spikes. He slid into the chair across from us without ordering anything. "The officiant called this morning," he said, his voice rough. He says he can't proceed until the transfer situation is addressed." I let out one slow breath, feeling my shoulders drop just a fraction. "I see. Emily's devastated." He ran a hand through his hair, making it worse. "She found out about everything an hour ago. The invitations, the blocked calls, the money." He stopped, swallowing hard. "Your mother's not answering her phone." Of course she wasn't. Mother never stood her ground when her stories started falling apart. She'd be strategizing right now, finding new angles, new ways to spin this. "James," I said carefully, "what do you need from me?" He looked up then, really looked at me for maybe the first time since this whole nightmare started. "Just be there when Emily's ready to talk. She's trying to process a lot right now." I nodded, keeping my face neutral even though my heart was racing. "I'm not going anywhere." "The rehearsal's at 4, he said, standing up, "but there's going to be a meeting first, with the officiant, and lawyers probably." He hesitated. "You should be there." "We will be," Karen answered for me, patting her tote bag. After James left, Karen and I sat in silence for a long moment. The cafe's espresso machine hissed and sputtered, filling the quiet with familiar noise. My coffee had gone completely cold. "Laura?" Karen's voice was gentle. "You okay?" I looked down at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. "You know what's strange?" I said. "I keep thinking about those stupid waiting room magazines. Wedding mornings should smell like flowers and fresh coffee, not this heavy mix of rain-soaked air conditioning and anxiety." I stood in the corridor outside the bridal suite, feeling every second tick by like tiny hammer blows against my temples. "Ma'am, if you'll wait here," the young staff member had said, gesturing to a velvet bench near a potted fern. "We want to avoid any confusion in the lobby." Her carefully neutral expression told me she knew exactly what kind of storm was brewing. I sat, smoothing my navy dress, the one I'd chosen months ago, before everything imploded. From somewhere down the hall came the sound of voices, first measured, then rising. The words themselves were muffled by thick walls and plush carpet, but the tone carried clear enough. Tension, ratcheting up degree by degree. You know that feeling when you're watching storm clouds gather? When the air gets thick and green, and you can taste the lightning coming? That's what it felt like, sitting there alone while my mother faced the consequences of her choices. The door at the end of the hall opened first. Mother strode out like she was walking onto a stage, chin high, every silver hair in place. But I knew her tells, the way her left hand kept touching her pearls, how her steps came just a fraction too quick. "Leave." She didn't even look at me properly. "Now, before you make an even bigger spectacle of yourself." I stayed seated, hands folded in my lap. The old Laura would have jumped. To obey, would have scurried away to keep the peace. But I wasn't that Laura anymore. The officiant appeared behind her, his formal black suit somehow more serious than usual. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, and his tone made Mother's spine stiffen. "I believe we discussed waiting until all parties were present. This ceremony," he continued, turning slightly to include me in the conversation, "will need to pause briefly. There are some financial irregularities requiring immediate clarification." Mother's jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. "This is ridiculous. The guests are already—" As if on cue, the main doors opened somewhere beyond our hallway. Voices drifted up, dozens of them, mixing with the click of dress shoes on marble and the rustle of formal clothes. "Perhaps," Mother tried again, her voice dropping to that smooth, controlling tone she used for public persuasion. "We could discuss this after—" "No." The officiant's word fell like a gavel. "We cannot." A murmur of confusion rippled through the gathering crowd. I could picture it spreading like ink in water, The whispers, the wondering, the gradual realization that something was very wrong. My throat felt dry as dust, but I managed to ask the only question that mattered. "Has Emily been informed?" The officiant nodded once. "Emily is being brought in now." Mother's hand flew to her pearls again. For just a second, her mask slipped, and I saw raw fear flash across her face. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing, the way I used to do when Emily was little and sick with fever, counting each inhale, holding steady through the worry. Down the hall, footsteps approached, quick and sharp on the marble floor. The sound made me think of Emily learning to walk in tiny patent leather, shoes click-clicking across our kitchen tiles while I hovered nearby, ready to catch her if she stumbled. I'd always been ready to catch her. Mother shifted her weight, and I opened my eyes to find her staring at the far door like it might burst into flames. The footsteps grew closer, more voices joined them, and somewhere in the mix I heard what might have been crying. My hands wanted to shake, but I kept them still, folded in my lap like anchors. The air felt heavier with each passing second, thick with the weight of decades of lies finally catching up to their source. Through the walls came the distinct sound of a bride's heels on marble, moving fast, moving closer. The door swung open, and there was Emily, my little girl in white, though not looking very bridal at the moment. Her veil was askew, and her hands trembled as she took in the scene. Her eyes bounced from face to face, like a pinball, trying to make sense of why her wedding had ground to a halt. Have you ever watched someone's world tilt sideways? That's what I saw happening in my daughter's expression. "What's going on?" Emily's voice cracked on the last word. "James said—" She stopped, swallowing hard as her fiancé stepped forward. James cleared his throat. "Em, we need to talk about some financial issues. The money you inherited from your dad, there've been transfers." He glanced at the officiant, who nodded encouragingly. "Large transfers to accounts we didn't authorize." The officiant's steady voice picked up the thread. "We've verified the documentation. Substantial sums were moved from your inheritance account to private accounts not associated with wedding expenses." Mother didn't miss a beat. She'd probably rehearsed this moment in front of her mirror, the way she practiced all her performances. "Darling," she purred, "I was simply fronting costs to streamline the planning process. You know how vendors can be, always wanting deposits, always needing immediate responses. I handled everything to spare you the stress." I watched Emily's face as the explanation washed over her. 25 years of knowing my daughter let me see the exact moment doubt crept in. Her head tilted slightly, the same way it did when she was 7 and caught her first lie from a classmate. More guests were gathering at the edges of our little drama now. I could hear the whispers, see the phones being quietly raised. A bridesmaid, Katie, Emily's friend since high school, had her hand pressed against her mouth. "The funds can be traced," I said softly, keeping my voice level. "And the timeline is clear, along with every blocked call, every intercepted message." I met Emily's eyes. "We can fix the access issues today, both communication and financial." Mother's face flushed. "This is absurd. We have contracts in place, deposits paid, guests waiting." She turned to the officiant, voice sharp as a blade. "You will proceed with this ceremony immediately." "I will not." The officiant's tone could have chilled champagne. "My duty is to protect the interests of the couple I'm joining. This ceremony cannot continue until these matters are addressed." Emily's shoulders straightened, that subtle squaring I'd seen since she was tiny, when she was about to take a stand. She took a breath. "I need a minute. With my mom." Her eyes found mine. "Just us." Mother stepped forward, pearls clutched like a shield. "Emily, dear, let's not—" Emily's hand shot up, palm out. The gesture wasn't dramatic, but it stopped Mother mid-sentence, maybe because Emily had never done it before. Had never simply said no to her grandmother's forward momentum. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. I stayed perfectly still, watching my daughter's face as she held that hand up, as she kept her grandmother at bay for possibly the first time in her life. The moment stretched, pulled taut as a wire between them. A phone chimed somewhere in the growing crowd of onlookers. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The air conditioning hummed steadily in the background, a counterpoint to the tension crackling through our little corridor. Emily's hand didn't waver. Emily and I slipped into a small anteroom off the main corridor. Funny how these wedding venues always have these little pocket spaces, meant for last-minute makeup fixes and dress adjustments, not for mending years of damage. But there we were. You know that moment when the truth finally breaks through? When someone you love realizes they've been living in a carefully constructed shadow? That's what I watched happen on my daughter's face. She folded into my arms like she used to do as a little girl, her tears leaving dark spots on the silk of her wedding dress. The fabric would show the stains, but I didn't care. Some things matter more than keeping up appearances. That's a lesson my mother never learned. "Mom," Emily's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. When Grandma said that you weren't stable enough." She pulled back, mascara smudged. "I should have known better. You've always been my rock." I smoothed a strand of hair from her face, the way I had done thousands of times before. "Your grandmother's very good at what she does. She's had decades of practice." "I want you with me today," Emily said firmly. "Where you belong, as my mother." She squeezed my hands. "Will you stand with me? Have you ever felt your heart crack and heal in the same instant?" That's what her words did to me. We walked back out together, Emily's arm linked through mine. The crowd had grown, guests drawn by the delay and drama. My mother stood where we'd left her, her perfect posture a fortress against the whispers around her. The officiant stepped forward, holding up the financial documentation. "Mrs. Whitaker, I'm obligated to file a formal report regarding these transfers. The paper trail is quite clear." My mother's face didn't change, but her knuckles went white around her clutched pearls. You can always tell when she's rattled. She grabs those pearls like they're a lifeline. Emily's voice carried clearly through the hushed hall. "Grandmother, you no longer have any authority over my wedding or my accounts." She turned to face the gathered crowd. "My mother, my real mother, will be taking her rightful place today." The whispers grew louder. Phones appeared everywhere, documenting the moment. My mother's carefully curated social image crumbled in real time, one raised eyebrow and shocked murmur at a time. James, bless him, was already on his phone with the bank. "Yes, I need an immediate hold placed on all accounts associated with—" His voice faded as he stepped aside to handle the details. The venue coordinator appeared with her tablet. "Miss Emily, we'll need to update our contact information." She put the call on speaker as she dialed each vendor, efficiently transferring authority to Emily and me while the witnesses watched. When it was done, Emily turned to me. She held out her bouquet, white roses and blue delphiniums, the same flowers I'd carried at my own wedding. "Mom, would you hold this for me, just while we sort everything out?" I took the flowers, their weight solid and real in my hands. The stems were cool against my palms, the blooms bright and perfect in the morning light streaming through the high windows. Everything my mother had tried to steal, my daughter's trust, my role, my voice, had finally found its way back to truth. Looking at those flowers, feeling their rightful weight in my hands, I said what needed to be said. Truth shines brighter than control. It wasn't a dramatic statement. Didn't need to be. The simple words hung in the air as Emily hugged me again, as my mother's power dissolved like sugar in rain, as the gathered guests watched karma balance its books in real time.